Guys, welcome to another Puritan Table. I'm Rafa. Today I have Paulo and João, the first two guests, and we're going to be running another episode in English. So for the Portuguese speakers, para quem fala português, nós temos legenda em português, de inglês para português, e estão muito boas. A gente testou as legendas, tá incrível, tá muito bom mesmo. O AI do YouTube faz um trabalho muito bom. Traduziu até gíria, traduziu sua gíria, a gíria que você usou no vídeo, ele traduziu para o contexto brasileiro.
Caraca, mano.
Ficou muito bravo. So we're gonna be running it in English because I just feel like we have to run it in English. I want to have more episodes in English. I had 4 in a row in Portuguese, so yeah. So welcome, guys. Thank you for coming back. Paulo's episode was the first one, and it was really different than it is right now. It was horrible quality, no team. But we posted it and we look where we at right now. 7 episodes difference, and it's incredible. I have a whole team, so thankful for them and also for the whole work that they're putting in. Even though João did not post any shorts this week.
Bro, I don't know how to. All right, can we get that? Can we all right, let's leave that to the side. That was not my fault.
You go on YouTube, bro.
And
then you create shorts.
He had like the whole weekend to do that. He did it, by the way.
Bro, I had too much schoolwork this week, bro. I had too much.
You go on the add button. It's like top right.
He knows.
And then you just add it.
And
it's common knowledge. What do you mean? How does he know this? It's on YouTube when you open it up. It's right there.
Make an upload. It's like right beside your profile picture. Oh, but okay, no problem.
Okay. It's okay, buddy.
I apologize.
A quick Google search.
Guys, I apologize. That's my bad. Next week, Heitor will do.
Well, so it's the first three-way episode as well. So we have 3 people. We have plans to have even more. It's gonna come up soon. But yeah, let's get it started. I have some questions. João has some questions. We have a theologian here to answer the questions.
Oh gosh.
I'm not gonna. I really don't have a script for this one. I'm trying to run without scripts now because I think it flows better.
Natural.
It flows more natural, and I feel like I'm able to come up with really good, like some decent questions throughout the episode, depending on what we're talking about. But let's start with the problem of the past 2 weeks, probably in Brazil, especially.
Oh God.
I don't know if you saw it. I'm asking to a musician theologian, so I really want to know his view on this. Awe.
All right.
I saw some content on it. I also saw. I didn't really listen to the song itself. I saw somebody reacting the whole thing. What is your point of view on it?
I think this is an interesting question. I'm not the one who discerns heart and mind, intention of man, right? That's something that God does. He searches our hearts. He knows what's within us. And so when I say, for example, that it was wrong for them to produce a song like that, and it was, it was in the interest of their heart to promote another religion. I can't tell you that was it. Why? Because I didn't see much. I got tired of it on like the second day. I was like, not really my personal style of music to listen to, so I didn't really engage with it. Mm-hmm. But from what I did see, they made the song out of a heart that was serving a community whose cultures and kind of practices were related to that. So it was a way to almost bring the gospel to the people that they were serving and try to relate it, but then you get this problem, which is religious syncretism, mm-hmm. right? Which is when you start mixing, you start intertwining religions, and you make something new. And this is very common today. You get a lot of mixage with New Age belief, with witchcraft, with this hyper humanistic theology, right, which would be a more philosophical angle to approach theology from. You get so many different mixing elements, but for them it was that element. And then where does the problem lie? I don't think the problem lies in their intention per se. I think that their problem lies in a very hard-headed way to see the world.
From them?
From them. Because anyone who has a heart or a mind could probably realize that their intention was not all bad. But the reason as to why it became so bad is because communication matters.
Yeah.
What you say, who you say it to, and what not only what you say and who you say it to, but how somebody understands and receives what you're saying, it's different. So for example, if I had just finished, talking to someone and it was like a great productive thing, and I'm like, hey, brother, or hey, sister, from the bottom of my heart, I love you in Christ. Like that's what they're receiving. They're like, I love you too. Now, if I were to, go up to a random person on the street and I'm like, my sister in Christ, I love you, like random person, they're going to be like, yo, chill, buddy. I have no idea who you are. It really varies from person to person, the interaction of what you say and how they receive it. The problem is that most people having or knowing the background of where that song came from, they didn't receive it well. And so is it a problem? I'd say that it's dangerous. I wouldn't say it's like the biggest problem in the world. Like, I don't even know how the song starts. I personally don't think it's that big of a deal. But I would say that we have to be careful. We have to produce intentional songs for the congregation that, one, glorify God. They exalt his character. They exalt his attributes. They tell us the truth. They give us the truth and nothing but the truth. I mean, you go to Sovereign Grace Music sometimes on the internet and you just enter in there and you listen to hymns. You're like, man, these guys were cooking. You need to have songs that are theologically sound. So not only do they exalt God, but they exalt God in the right way. And 3, that communicate well to all generations. So from the kid who's entering into the church all the way to the older person in the church, that is probably what they need to walk into the church, and they need to relate in a sense with the song. Obviously, different age groups are going to relate in different ways, but there has to be that relational aspect to the person where they look and they agree and they say, wow, yes, God is an awesome God.
Well, I think, from what I saw, there was an introduction before the song. Okay. There was a whole they kind of went over it in I think it was about like, I don't really know, 20 minutes or something like that. They did talk about the background. So how they made up the song, right? What was their intention, why the name, why the language. They explained all that. But I feel like there was a problem from the Christians, from not everybody, of course, but from a vast part of the community that at least listened to the song. I think it was they had a hard head. You know what I mean? Yeah. They didn't want to listen. They didn't want to see the perspective of the authors, because from what I saw, the music was pretty well explained before it was sang, before it was presented for the first time, right? Yeah. And I do see the lack of communication or the bad choice of some aspects. So like, did they really have to dress that way? Did they really have to wear those make collars? It that big of a deal, I don't think they had to. It's their culture, okay, but like, did they really have to? They were already stepping into a really kind of difficult scenario over there. They knew they were gonna get flamed already. So why would they get? They would go like step with both.
Yeah,
feet
they went,
you know,
like a step too far.
Yeah, I would say that. Again, I'm not in their shoes, and they produce a lot of great songs before. Like we have the credit, I think, to give them grace. Like Colossenses e suas linhas de amor, that was a super popular song. I think Único as well, right? Was something that they sang, or at least Marco Telly, something like that.
Yeah.
And then aquele Tu Porém, like the whole prelude and just the album that they did before, talking about Timothy. It was a great album in terms of theological soundness. And what I would say, it is so important. The Bible tells us that one day every tongue, every tribe, every nation, every person is going to stand before God. And on that day, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Whether they believed it truly in this life or not, both unbelievers and believers will look and they'll see, and they will declare with their own mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord, that he reigns. And you get this depiction of heaven, which is this conglomeration of people groups across so many centuries. We're going to have people from kingdoms that don't exist anymore worshiping aside us for the glory of God, for eternity. And you look at all this and you think, like, man, is the only thing we can sing in church, like, is the greatest thing we have elevation? Wait a little bit. Espera. There's a lot of good things in singing, you know, elevation. It's a great thing to sing Maverick City. It's a great song it's a great thing to sing, you know, a little bit of Hillsong, some Michael W. Smith. You want to throw in some Chris Tomlin. You want to throw in like these other guys, Jeremy Kemp, you know, just throwing it way back, wrenching the whole machine. Like, it's so cool to sing these American songs in church, right? English songs. Some were produced in Australia, England, others in America. But overall, like, you would look at all this and you would say, is that what worship is? And it's not. You know, I remember that when I was a kid, I was like 5 years old. We brought some kids from Africa to our church, and they taught us like some African worship songs, and it's completely different. Like, I don't remember the words, obviously, because I do not speak Swahili, I think, or I don't even remember what native tongue this is. But the song was basically translated, "We are walking in the light of God. We are walking in the light of God. We are walking in the light." And they're like marching, and it's so fun. So you think about the imagery. Jesus came to redeem all people from all cultures, all tribes, all nations, all tongues, all cultures in a sense, right? Emphasis on the culture. Why would worship only look one specific way? It's not necessarily supposed to be like that. And so there is a lot of joy in seeing songs that are produced that bring the air of Brazilian culture, but it doesn't have to blur the lines. You don't blur lines like that. You don't make it so that it's ambiguous in a sense. Culture is deep. It's within us, yeah. But if culture is not subjected to Christ, it needs to go away. Our culture, it's so important to our identity, but Christ is more. And so our culture needs to serve us in order to serve the community. It needs to be beneficial for us spiritually so that it can be beneficial for the community. And that's kind of my thought process on it. You get so many cool people like Projeto Sole. You get, you know, Purples, which are big in the Reformed community, I guess. You have Marcos Teles, o Candeeiro, that was very big in the Reformed community before this all broke out. It's all true. And so many valuable artists, even João Alexandre, you know, and so many other musicians they have produced sounds that are Brazilian, that bring some kind of Brazilian culture. And that's worthwhile to us, right? It's worthwhile because it preserves something that is relevant to us. Culture speaks to people, right? That's kind of my thought on the whole thing. I guess it would just be that we need to be careful, that we need to really lock in and not blur the lines, but also we need to do it in a way that's relevant to our people. We can't say that Christianity looks one specific way. It doesn't. Christianity is not a specific color. It's not a specific language. It's not a specific location. It supersedes everything. It goes beyond everything else. It's beyond all nations. It's beyond all tribes. It's beyond all tongues. It's beyond all nations. And that's why we can include them all in the kingdom of God, because it's greater than everything else. So while we're here, we just be careful and we serve in the correct way. I don't know if that really answers anything. I don't know.
Well, it's just some thoughts.
Yeah, some
it does
thoughts,
answer. Yeah, I didn't really have a question guards it, because I kind of have my ideas, but I wanted to know from your perspective, because we didn't get to talk about that. João, what do you think? Did you have any? I know you didn't hear about it until yesterday.
I figured this out yesterday.
Yeah, so I was like, yo, we're gonna talk about this tomorrow.
I was like, what the heck is that?
Search it
Bro
out.
went immediately to ChatGPT.
No, I actually went to
He's
YouTube.
like, Claude, please let me know.
Well, from what I saw, it's very I feel like it's in regards to the culture, like we said. We do have to be careful, like Paulo said, not blur the lines, because it's kind of it's different, right? Because not everyone understands what Christianity is. Not everyone understands what the other cultures are, and blurring those lines creates that difficulty in trying to think of the word here. Difficulty in connecting the two, and trying to overly put that culture to the modern day culture, and then create this whole big problem. Like you said, the way that they dressed was, I feel like that was a little out of pocket. They need to do that. But I'm very whatever Paulo said, I agree with from what I know. No, from what I saw, guys. I'm very turned off from this topic. I don't know what's going on. I'm very desligado from the Brazilian world. I don't know anything that's going on down there, especially in the music scene. So yeah, I can't really say anything because of my lack of knowledge in the subject.
All right. Okay, that was a better answer than whatever Paulo says. I agree with. I'm not gonna lie. But okay. And bring it to about this aspect of the church. I mean the people of God, the church of God, going over any culture, any tribe, any specific church environment. We see that there is a movement going on which is not reformed. We see I would say some kind of awakening. Is that how it's called?
Yeah.
Awakening. On Christianity, but non-denominational Christianity, especially here in Brazil. I don't think there's many non-denominational churches, but especially here in the U.S., we see that going on among the youth, which we are all members of, we are all part of. And you as a leader, as somebody that is a theologian, as somebody that is leading a youth community right now. Yeah. How do you feel? I know the problem is not them being non-denominational. If they're coming to Christ, that's already great. That's amazing. But I feel like there are some aspects that they come to Christ imagining that maybe are not the best ideas. So I feel like becoming Christian it's turning more popular. It's becoming more popular. How and many people are turning Christian because of that, because it's popular right now. It gets you likes.
Trendy.
It's trendy, and I also feel like there's people that are being led to Christ even among all the trend. What do you think of that?
I think we need to be careful. Always careful. I think that the line of thinking that we're called to is to never really rush into a specific claim. We always got to question. We always got to be careful. That's a part of what being, I guess, Reformed, Protestant, Calvinist, Presbyterian, whatever you want to call it. It's a big part of what we do. We question a lot, and that is what allows us to look at different points of views. There's a German phrase. I don't remember exactly how it goes, and I don't speak German, so I'm not even going to attempt it. But it speaks on the necessity of inverting things, looking at things from different perspectives. So we look at it from the first perspective. People are, hundreds, thousands of people are just in non-denominational churches, and the churches are growing and everything else. It's like great. And we're like, wow, people are coming to Christ. That is great. Yes, from that point of view, it's amazing. It's amazing. But what if the opposite is true? And we ask, why? Why are they going to these churches? That's where we begin to analyze different scenarios in different churches, and we see contributing factors to it, right? So for example, what causes in today's day and age growth in the church? We get a lot of variables. We get, I guess, community involvement, how involved the church is with missions and evangelism. You get things like infrastructure. How big is the church? Where is it located? What amenities, in a sense, does the church provide? Because this nowadays, before it wasn't. In any other country, it really isn't. But nowadays, like, you go into church, and if the seat's not comfortable, you're like, man, I don't want to be here. And then you get to church, and there's like those big chairs, and you're like, man, this is great. I could get used to this. And then, like, they have services every single day of the week. So even if you don't go 7 days a week, you could go like twice, and you're still okay by your own standards, right? And you have like this amazing worship band, and not even a lot of times the pastor is as good as the worship, right? For these churches, and this is not to speak badly of any pastor, but you just see such a big jump in proficiency from other denominations. Like, these people are playing well, they're in sync, they know their music theory. The sound directors, they have sound directors, people who have talkback mics, and their music directors that can kind of guide the whole flow of the moment. And then you have people who actually know how to use the soundboard, and then the sound comes out, and it's like, it's amazing, and it sounds like you're in a movie theater, or like an orchestra or an opera or whatever you want to look at it as. And it's just like amazing, and you're there, and you're like, wow, this is so good. But then that person goes back into their day-to-day life, and then you ask, have they been changed? Right? So what is it that defines revival? Is it church growth? Is it church is it like a saturation of people in a single spot? I don't think so. I don't think it's that simple. We could have 90, 100 people in a church, 200, 300 people, and it not necessarily be a revival. I think that revival it carries with it some specific marks. So first of all, It is the act of taking God at his word seriously. So if revival doesn't produce in us a passion for the word, if revival doesn't produce in us a passion for knowing God through the word, it's not revival. If revival does not put in me the fear of that same God in terms of respect, and I look at him and I'm like, man, I really want to live for you. You deserve this, right? That's not really revival. And if revival doesn't ultimately come through obedience and then furthermore through sacrifice of our own personal desires and our own personal motivations and our own personal plans, then it's not really revival. I wouldn't say, for example, that somebody who has experienced revival would be resistant to the calling of the gospel to go out and share with their neighbor. You know, I think that if God has revived, he's touched the heart of a person. He said, come alive. Like more than you've ever been. You're gonna, this is a season of intensity for you. I'm going to wake you up. I'm going to shake you and I'm going to use you to bring the word into the community. I don't think that you could realistically experience that and just go to school and sit at your desk and, you know, do math and find X and Y, but never find a way to present the gospel to your best friend. You know, that's not revival. Revival always does two things. One, it changes the person. It changes the preacher. It changes the people who are listening. And then, because it has radically changed our hearts and turned us towards the reality of who we are and who God is, it brings us out into the world in order to bring more people to the heart of God. If that makes sense. That's kind of my opinion on it. I don't think that's a denominational issue. I think it's a terminological issue. I think that we're using the wrong terms. It's an amazing movement to see these people in there worshiping for God knows how many hours. But revival is you being awoken to the call, equipped for the call, and sent out for the call. So that's what I would say.
Funny how you talked about the worship for like how many hours. I saw on Instagram. SCU is like a really good college, and they have really good music. Like some of their music is fire. Like some of the SCU like university songs are goated. And then they had this like conference thing for like God knows how many hours. I think it was like 90 hours of just straight worship. I don't know.
Okay.
It's like crazy. But it also is like, we know that like worship is something that doesn't only happen in a place. It has to be something that goes on throughout our day-to-day lives, everywhere we go. We're supposed to be always worshiping God. And it's very, I feel like the awakening thing, it's like, it's amazing to see people coming to Christ, but we also don't want them to come to Christ just because their friend goes to Christ or because it's trendy. We want them to come to Christ because they know God. They know God loves them, know Christ loves them, and they truly desire, right, to seek and to have a relationship with Christ. Because I remember I didn't go to Christ just because my friends went to Christ. I went to Christ because like I encountered Christ and I wanted to learn more about him.
Well, I feel like, yeah, I get it. I feel like your friends inviting you to church is a great way to get it started.
Yeah, exactly. That's
and
you're
gonna at first you're gonna go because you're going because they're inviting you.
My friends are
And
there.
after that, but you're not gonna be revived because of that.
Exactly.
You're gonna be revived because you found Christ. Exactly. And well, you saying that it's not a denominational issue, I would argue on the other view that that not in all cases, but in most cases it is. We don't see movements like that happening in true Reformed churches, like movements in which the people don't have a change to their lives, and we don't see movements that like people, like thousands of people gather together and are not changed. We don't see movements that people don't take it seriously. In Reformed Church, I think we take it very seriously. And that's the big difference. the non-denominational churches, not all of them, some of them are great, some of them are true to the word, they take it very seriously, they just don't want to be attached to any denomination. But in most cases of these big events and these big like trendy encounters and gatherings, it's never in a Reformed church.
Yeah, I would argue again, always careful, right? I would ask the opposite question. I would invert it again, and then I'd ask why. Why isn't the Presbyterian world like that? So I think it's my contention from what I've seen with the Presbyterian Church, we're really good at structure. Really good. Church government within the Presbyterian Church, phenomenal. We have a whole constitution that's written for the church that tells us what are the responsibilities of the church, what we should do in a bunch of different situations, who does what. We have a book for church discipline. It's a whole separate section that's like this thick, and it teaches you what you should do in accordance with each wrongdoing of the member that's brought before the session, whether it's a personal problem that he has or whether it's a report that he has to give. Like, everything is so neatly structured. The theology is great. Most people within the Presbyterian Church who are teaching, they have some sort of background in teaching. Here in the United States, Presbyterian churches, they do have good funds. They're able to sustain their pastor, at least within the PCA, not necessarily the IPB like we're in right now. But I'd say that there's a big problem, because if we have all this structure and we're not able to have events like that, not that those events are the most crucial thing, but if it's never been a reality for us, why is that? Can God only bring hundreds, thousands of people to non-denominational churches? So I think that the question that I would ask is, yeah, maybe they don't have the theology or the seriousness, in a sense, that we have with all of the structure. But I would argue that they're more serious about local missions than we are. I would say that the Presbyterian Church has created great theologians within the church. I would say that oftentimes we see an inversion between the churches. You get really good at theology and your mission starts to go down, or you get really good at missions and then your theology kind of starts to fall off. We need to find the spot where both our theology and our mission can grow together. And I think that if we could find that, then we would start to see people truly coming to, Presbyterian, Baptist, Reformed churches, like Reformed churches, Dutch Reformed, just Reformed in general, Presbyterian, that we would see a greater movement of people coming to these churches. If you were to look at the demographics, Presbyterian churches are like at the bottom. Like, we don't have a lot of people. We have really, really good educators and teachers, but we just don't have much people. And we can't attribute that to like, people just don't want to come to church. No, I think...
Don't you think that it's because we seem unattractive in some way? And because we don't have the light shows or the cool worship or the... Many times we don't have the coffee after the word.
I would say this. I think that we don't have commitment. I think that that's the problem. I think I was reading this one book by I've already talked about this with you and João privately. It's called Dopamine Nation, by a psychologist. I saw it at Barnes and Nobles, and I picked it up when I went on a 2-week trip, and then I read it during the trip because I had no internet. And she said that one of the leading determinant factors for somebody staying within a group is their willingness to be subjected to the transformation that group offers. So if, for example, I go to this is one of the examples that she uses. She says, let's suppose that I have a problem with addiction. I'm an alcoholic, and it's gone too far in my life and I want to change. So I step into AA, right? And it's a group that promotes full transparency and honesty, but change through the honesty, right? And so she says that one of the ways for you to determine whether somebody is going to be successful or not is if they actually begin to live out and include in their day-to-day life the reality of AA. So if they're honest about if they were tempted to drink, if they did drink, if they fell back into their ways, or if they've been clean, if they've been entirely clean, what their intentions, desires are. And if they allow that to start shaping them, it's more likely for them to stay. I think that the Presbyterian church and Reformed churches in general, they're really good at making people who know how to read their Bibles, who know how to interpret text, who know how to, be involved, engaged in a lot of services. But I don't think we've reached a good point for the most churches where it's requiring something extra from us. I think that, all that structure stuff in terms of worship, in terms of lights, in terms of, that's all cool, but I don't think that's what keeps someone at church. I think what keeps someone at church is a discipleship program. I think it's an environment where they feel like they're seen and cared for. It's an environment where they're taught the word. It's an environment where they're prayed for. It's an environment where they're held accountable to. And I think that it's a church where they serve at and they are equipped at for their operation in the world. So it's never just the center of operations. It's home base for everything else that we do. I think that that's what changes between us. We're not at the point yet where we've decided that we're going to reconcile and take seriously local missions in our day-to-day life. And that's a big problem. I'd say that for me would be the one thing that I've seen consistently across the board.
Got it. And why do you think we don't give them much attention to the local mission?
Because I think that we've misunderstood mission entirely. I think that as a church we dream with big lights and relevant things, and we think that mission is, João wakes up tomorrow and he's like, man, I'm going to Zimbabwe,
Africa. I'm gonna go
I'm going to Thailand. I'm going, I felt a calling in my heart. I'm going to like the northeastern part of Russia where it's just snow, and that's where I'm going to be for like the next 28 years. Or you're like, man, I'm going to be a hermit in like, some obscure community in some obscure part of the world. And that's not it. It's not.
And I was actually talking to my cousin the other day, and he was like, well, we were talking about church and all. I was like, well, we have some really good projects for this year and all, and like get more people from the community and all, like reach out more. And he was like, but is there, like, do you feel like there's people to go? Like there's a field? Do you feel like, and then, no. Yeah, we were talking about that. But then we were talking about mission in general at first. That's what I recall. We were talking about missions, and then I was like, well, I don't know if I do missions outside of the U.S. And he was like, well, do you think there's missions to do in the U.S.? I was like, yes, there's a lot of missions to do in the U.S.
There's and so much. Like, yeah.
Do you think so? Like everybody knows the word. And I was like, yeah, but they're not all in the word. Like there's so much to reach. There's so much to get in the U.S. and we're so focused about other places. Yeah. We should be, but there's so much to call in Fairfield, in Connecticut that we haven't reached.
Around us.
There's so much in New York, in New York, especially in Connecticut, in the New England area that hasn't been reached. And we're so focused on Africa and
these like obscure places
and
in the middle of nowhere,
Asia and like Iran, but like, buddy, if your neighbor is probably not Christian.
Yeah, I think that's the funny and I guess a little bit ironic part, because we can get very concerned when it's impersonal to us. It's called being good at doing the wrong things, of using your time, resources inefficiently. And it's not to say that the person who, on a whim goes to Africa or the Middle East or Southeastern Asia, wherever it may be, it's not that they wouldn't be a blessing and they wouldn't benefit from that experience. But I would also contend to say that as Presbyterians, we believe that the gospel has the power to reform the spaces that we are currently living in. It's the gospel that's going to be able to reach your school and change policies and change the community. It's the gospel that's going to reach your family, and it's going to change the operation of how your father treats your mother and how you treat your siblings and how you relate to your parents. It's the gospel that does that. It's the gospel that's going to reach your friend group, and it's going to bring your friends from drugs and partying and relationships and this cyclical behavior in terms of satisfaction. It's the gospel that's going to take your friend group and transform them from desire craving people, pleasure craving people, and it's going to turn them into people seeking followers of Christ. It's the gospel that transforms the government. It's the gospel that reforms governmental spaces. We're not supposed to be detached from reality looking for the next flight on American Airlines, JetBlue, or whatever other airline company. We're not supposed to be that detached. If God has put a burden in our heart for a people, that's different. It's a calling, we have to go. But for most of us, God's calling to us is, your neighbor needs Jesus. Your dad needs Jesus. Your mom needs Jesus. Your brothers need Jesus. Your sisters need Jesus. The people in your church need Jesus. The homeless people in your community need Jesus. The orphans and widows in your community, they need Jesus. The poor and the rich in your community, they need Jesus. Every single person, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, whatever ethnicity they may or background they may come from, they need Jesus. And so it's time for us to stop looking and saying they already know, because they don't. If they did know, they would be with us.
Exactly.
If they did know, they would be in church. If they did see the ultimate reality of what's really going on, they would not be away from God. And so it's our calling to not lie in our, belief as Presbyterians that there's predestination and just say, if God wants to transform them, he's going to do it. No, we need to pick up our tools. We need to put our hand to the axe, to the shovel, to whatever farming tool you may have, and we need to hit the fields, and we need to go out and we need to farm for the glory of God. That's exactly what we need to do. No more theorizing or purely theorizing, no more purely debating, no more purely talking. We got to get up and act, because it's through the action and prayer that God transforms the entire reality around us. That's his grace within certain situations, that he will be with us as we go out and we make disciples from every tribe, tongue, nation, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey every single one of his commands.
Yeah, no, those were some bars, bro. Since spinning that last action part.
I blanked out. I don't know what bars. I said. No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, I definitely think that if we say that they know, it's kind of us trying to run away from what we actually have to do. Because me personally, I know a lot of people who don't know, who claim like, yeah, no, I'm Christian, but like they don't know what they're actually like saying they believe in.
Segura o microfone mais perto, Sócio.
Sorry guys. So yeah, I know a lot of people who claim to be Christian, who claim to like, yeah, no, like I'm Christian, I pray, I do this, I do that, but they don't know what they believe in. And I think that before we start looking at these outward places, looking at these obscure places, we need to actually look in our community, in our friends, and our family, and the people who are around us, because it starts locally and then it expands, right? Like that's how we grow, not only as a people, but like as a family, right? Because we're all family in Christ. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I see like, well, we have I think one of the biggest examples in history is how the colonizers got here. They got here to spread the word, but at first, everything was resolved there. So like
Yeah.
like the word was preached there
Yeah.
before it reached to us. And now, unfortunately, we see like a decreasing in Europe, and we should reach out to them. But I think that at first we gotta realize that there is also a decreasing on the Christianity faith in the U.S.
Exactly.
Guys, there is a mayor that's Muslim in our biggest state. Like what is going on? Like it's insane. For me, it doesn't get like that doesn't go into my head. How did we let that happen? A nation that was funded on the Christian beliefs, that has the Constitution written around the Bible, and we let that happen. There's, in my opinion, like I think we gotta work here first before we go out, because there's so much to be worked on here.
Yeah, I think that Jesus himself says that the field is big and the workers are very few, right? And so there's so much work for us to do. There's so much for us to, if we were to really put pen on paper and we were to draw up a map, everything that needs to change, everything that needs to be done within not Connecticut, just Fairfield or Trumbull or wherever we are right now, Stratford. We're kind of like in the middle of everything.
We're everywhere.
Just take one county, one little city as an example, and you'll see how much needs to be changed. It's a lifetime of work. You have pastors that are in the same church for 20, 30, 40 years and just caring for that one specific community, and that is just as honorable as the missionary that goes out into some tribe that doesn't have a language and translates the Bible for them. It's just as honorable for the mother or the father who educate their children in the ways of the Lord. It's just as honorable for these people who are living in accordance to the word, the mission that was given to them. All these missions are equally honorable in a sense. It's not you're not better than anyone because you went to missions in outside of the country. You're not better than anyone because you stayed at the same church for 40 years. You're also not better than anyone if you're a leader who's jumping from church to church and serving different communities all at once. You're not better if you serve in one singular ministry, but you do your job well. It's equally as honorable. It's equally as beautiful. You see it because it shows a heart that's not susceptible. It's not inclined to appearance or recognition. It's a heart that's inclined to doing the Lord's will, to fulfilling the Lord's calling. And that's ultimately what we were called to be. Not people who live for others in the sense of appearance, what they think of us, what they believe about us, but people who live for God. People who breathe, exist, move. They find their being in God. Everything that they are, it's about their obedience and their life before Him. And I think that's what we need to strive towards as a church, to be a church that's not worried about what other people have to say about us, but are wholeheartedly concerned with the mission that God has given us. We need to be missional people on a very intentional journey here in this life. It's the coolest opportunity we've ever been given to share something that will change somebody's eternal destiny. That is the greatest privilege, it is the greatest responsibility, and it is the greatest pleasure that we have to tell the world we were condemned in our sins. We were dead to our own trespasses against God. We deserved his righteous wrath. We deserved to be punished for all eternity because we offended an infinitely holy God. But God, having loved us and shown us mercy, he sends his son in our place to die the death that we deserve to die and live the life that we were supposed to live. And in Christ, he puts all of that onto our account, declaring us completely forgiven, completely wiped clean. We are made new in him. We are called towards a new future, a new mission, a new purpose. We have been given life. We have been resurrected with the same power that rose Christ from the grave on the third day. Listen to that. Is that not the greatest thing ever? And so we have to take mission seriously within the church. I think that would be the one factor that would change everything for us.
And talking a little bit about mission, about how the calling of God to every person is different. I want to talk to João a little bit because I feel like he's a little like silent over there.
Yeah, bro. Much. What's up?
So
oh no.
What's cooking, buddy?
Somebody that's about to become a pastor for real. Hopefully times. This year, right?
Hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah, we're working towards it. Pray for me, please, guys. Please pray for me, please.
And we have one that wants to go to seminary.
Yeah.
How is it going? What are you feeling? You found out that you have to have a bachelor's.
Well, yeah, no, I gotta actually get a bachelor's degree. So we gotta work towards something that's like that I can actually interest in, but I could also kind of have a quote unquote sustainability, not crazy sustainability, but a place where I could actually not rely on my parents, because seminary is long and then I have to go to university too. So it's kind of 8+ years of school, and it's kind of okay. Not gonna rely on
the track.
Got it, bro. Got to do what God's calling. But it's basically I don't want to rely on my parents until I'm 30. That's that's something that I don't want to rely, because by the time I'm 26, getting to the end of seminary, my sister's going to be getting into college, stuff like that. So I'm kind of I don't want to have to worry about that. So I'm going for exercise science or something that's very that I'm interested in, and that I know personal trainer, right? Become a personal trainer or something like that. Get some type of job at a gym, local gym.
Bodybuilder and pastor.
It's a crazy combo. Personal trainer on the weekdays. Sunday giving a nice little sermon.
Bro, I hope you know that it's it's a 40-50 hour job, bro.
I know.
Just letting you know, bro.
It's not an easy job. I'm not saying it's easy.
Bro, you gotta visit a lot of people, bro.
I know.
And it's gonna be difficult, bro. My dad was telling me that when he started,
it's hard, bro.
Man, because there's so many people that invite you to eat at their house for almost. And if you're gonna be a bodybuilder, bro, good luck, because you're gonna food. You're gonna eat a lot, bro. You're gonna have to do a heck of a
lot of cardio, bro. 45
heck of a lot of cardio, a heck of a lot of sauna to remove, all the seasoning from your body. It's gonna be it's gonna be crazy.
It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be fun though. I'm ready for it. I'm excited. I want to see what God has in store. It's gonna be
how do you feel, Paulo, about it? How do you see his growth on faith and his work towards his goal?
I think one of João's best qualities is that he's very teachable.
Yes.
And that's one of the most important positions. Not that I'm the greatest teacher, but just in general, I think that we have to learn the ability as human beings to really listen intently and come to the conclusion that maybe we don't know everything, you know? Even for myself, a lot of times I love reading, but I always love approaching books with the idea that I don't know anything previously. I read it with an open mind, and that's the one thing that kind of keeps you going. It gives you a silver lining when there are books that disagree with what you believe in. You're not, looking at it as if it's the end of the world. Like for you, it's just literature, And what I'm trying to get at is the more teachable we are, the more we can align our thoughts and opinions and positionings rightly, ethics, moral, with what the Bible tells us. Because if I'm not teachable, I'll listen to somebody who has input, who wants to correct me, who wants to guide me, who wants to help me, and I'll turn and I'll say, nope, don't want it. I already know everything. I already thought about this. I've already done my own research. You couldn't possibly change my mind. And oftentimes, even about that, we're wrong because they probably could change our mind in some sense. And just having the teachability, listening, recalling, really, really, I guess, chewing over and over the same spiritual food that you have received until it's depleted from all its nutrients. That's one of the greatest qualities that a shepherd, that a leader should have. And I mean, I see it in João. That's one of the greatest things about him. He's come a very long way in this past year. I mean, theologically speaking, I have seen a lot of difference as well in the beginning when I was receiving, weekly reports from like sermons and lessons that he was giving, and then now receiving the same reports. Like, it's different, and that's good. I'm proud of you, and I think that if you lock in, it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right.
Yeah. Like you said about the teachable thing, I always try to have an open mind because it's kind of like I want to understand what the person who I'm learning from is saying, but also the people who I'm speaking to. Like, I don't like to grade someone based on a different type of like thought process or like a different type of let's say religion. Like I don't like, yes, Christian, I really want people to come to Christ, but I'm also not going to degrade them because they're not Christian. I'm always like open-minded. I'm always trying to seek what they believe in to kind of like understand and have different points of views, because it's kind of like I don't like being hyper focused on one thought or on one exact pathway. I like having like the differences, like a difference in scenery. Like when you're on a road trip, you always have it's like a constant change. I always love like seeing the change in like scenery in my life and seeing the difference in people who I know. And it comes through like learning, like Paulo. I've been learning with him for like almost a year now, right? Gonna be a year in like March or April, something like that. And I've learned way too much. My brain's gotten a little bit bigger. It's been a good year, but I also know that I could learn a lot more. And especially this upcoming year, now that we're more structured as a ministry, I want to learn a lot more of the way that he does things, because I always look up to like the way people speak, like especially a pastor, right? Since we're going into that role, I'm always looking at the way that a pastor acts, that like a youth leader acts, and talking about something that Paulo's really good at. I feel bad not saying something that he's good at. He's really good at shepherding, really good at taking care of his sheep, even though sometimes he's a little mean, a little rude to me.
Disappear out of nowhere.
Bro, he just
except for the fact that he doesn't answer when we call him.
It's either he's gonna answer
call me twice, I'll answer. But
it's either he answers on the first ring, or it's like
that
gone.
urgent.
It's crazy, like,
because you guys will actually just call me to chat, and I'm like, guys, I don't want to talk to you. I have stuff that I actually have.
I call you to chat once a week, bro. Once a week, and he barely picks up.
No, but eventually I do. It depends.
I wouldn't be here if I didn't.
Okay, I wouldn't be in this chair.
We
have the behind the scenes. It's interesting. I wouldn't be here if I didn't.
Yeah, for real.
He's
'Cause
also-
Junior's call literally saved the day because he wasn't
did.
gonna show up.
He was
I
not
wasn't,
gonna wake
bro.
up. No, he was
I
gonna be
wasn't, I
asleep.
wasn't.
Excuse me, but yeah. Even though he could be like a little bit like, he's very like pushy. Like he'll like punch you around. Like he punches me around all the time, physically, spiritually, emotionally.
It's good. I think. Well, here's my approach. Here's my approach. Okay. I think that when we look at the Gospels, you get the big difference between John chapter 3 and John chapter 4. In John chapter 3, we have the famous speech of Jesus with Nicodemus. And then in John chapter 4, we have the imagery of the woman at the well. And
I don't. So you guys talk about that. It's my favorite. It's my favorite
Yeah.
chapter of the Bible.
wait,
John chapter 4.
Okay, John chapter 4. Okay.
It's my favorite chapter.
Okay.
Because he claims that he's the Christ, and because he speaks to a Samaritan woman, and I think it's
Absolutely mind-blowing.
yeah,
For
it's
the cultural
insane.
standards
It's
of the
incredible,
time.
and I don't see you guys say that. At least I think that's what you're trying to get. Where you're trying to get that he's harsh to her. It's kind of like.
No, I wouldn't say he's harsh to her. I'd say that he's actually very tender with her. He's actually harsh with Nicodemus.
With Nicodemus?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
then I get
Nicodemus
it.
is also a
that's-
teacher, though,
Yeah,
so,
that's
like-
that's the contention that I would have with with Jesus' actions towards different people. He never meets people where they're supposed to be. He meets people where they are. So he always comes to the person and he precisely knows what to say, and he's intentional with exactly what he says. You have in Nicodemus's chapter, for example, Jesus, he calls him out. He's like, bro, you're a part of the Sanhedrin, the 70 most important people, religiously speaking, in all of Israel. You were placed there. You are a relevant authority. You've come to me. Listen, what you got to do, you got to be born again. There's no way. You're dead. You're dead, Nicodemus. You need to be born again. He's like, how can I enter into my mother's womb? And he's like, nope, that's not how that happens. And then he tells Nicodemus his mission here on earth and how he can be born again. And he's harsh with Nicodemus because Nicodemus was a man who was theologically instructed. Now, with the Samaritan woman, he's not. He's like, go call your husband. She's like, I don't have one. He's like, yeah, you're right. You don't have one. You've had 3,000. No, I'm just kidding.
But like, yeah, because I feel like, because I what I thought you were about to say,
Yeah.
because I cut you off, was because of John 3:16,
Yeah.
and then you were gonna compare it to him calling her out on her.
So
her
that's,
sin.
yeah. So then he treats her where she's at, speaks to the tender wounds of her heart, if that makes sense. And then in that moment, she realizes the significance of what was happening. The very Christ was before her. And, you know, she draws she draws this conclusion that this man is worth going out and telling everyone in her village about. This woman who was alone, who was culturally rejected because of her marital status. She was drawing water at the wrong time of the day so that she would have no social interactions. Jesus takes the longer way to his destination, by the way. He had to pass through. The shortest way was actually another way, but he decides to go to this specific well because this specific woman had to hear that he was the one who would quench her thirst. And so he treats her exactly the way that she needed to be treated in that moment in order to change. And that's, for us, for example, that's a very difficult thing to gauge. At least as shepherds, it's learning your very sheep. In the beginning, they all look the same. But then you get to know them and you walk with them and you listen to them talk and their tendencies and their behaviors and their struggles and their, victories or whatever you might want to label it, the different things in their life. And you have to navigate knowing your sheep and relating to your sheep in specific ways, right? I'm not going to, and this is good, I'm not going to have the same conversations like João that I have with you that I'm going to have with Hafa. They might have similar topics, similar directions. But for example, I talked with Hafa the other day, like an hour 30 about like a bunch of different stuff. And then I talked to you for like an hour and 30 and it was completely different. And that's all good because we're each individuals with unique backgrounds and histories and, you know, inclinations, goals. And that's the beauty of pastoring people, that you never get one of the same person, that you have to treat exactly the same you do with the other. So sometimes, yeah, I am rougher with João. I'm like, bro, you got to go. Let's go. move. But that's because I think it's good for you in a sense, not like overbearing.
Yeah.
Like some authoritarian, like, bro, if you don't do this, I'm going to punch you in your mouth or something. Like, I would not do that, gang. But
are you sure?
You know, not in like, I'm not gonna, you're not 18 yet. You're not 18. Wait until you're 18 and then we'll see. But you do also call me like 18 times in a row.
That happened one time.
That
happened one time.
I don't want to hear it.
One time.
I don't want to hear it. Bro,
it was my phone to call you.
Yeah.
It's Junior's insight.
Have you repented for that, actually?
Have you repented?
That's just a question.
Yeah, no, it's all love here. He like, we have video evidence of me and him wrestling, by the way. Like video evidence.
I won.
He did win.
And regards the seminary, what are we aiming at? Where? I want to know more. I want to know like, how it's going.
Okay.
Uh,
Are you researching?
Yes. Okay. I'm looking at 3. Right now I'm looking at 3. Two that Paulo instructed me back in June, I think. It's like the first time I actually went out with the kid.
Not true.
It was yes it was.
I actually believe you. You remember these things. I don't
know why I remember them.
His first day.
It was after we went to the gym. We were at like a Starbucks, we were talking or something like that. I don't know.
I don't remember that day. I remember that day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I do. Yeah, because something happened that day. It was, whatever.
Anyway, he gave me Covenant Theological Seminary and Reformed
Backed by
Theological
the
Seminary.
PCA, FYI.
Exactly. And I'm also looking at Westminster in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
One of those two. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the difference between Pennsylvania and Philadelphia.
So you're looking at
Covenant, Reformed, and Westminster.
He just said he doesn't know the difference between Pennsylvania and Philadelphia.
We can leave that. Isn't Philadelphia the city?
Yeah.
Okay. I was making sure.
Westminster and Reform? What?
And
what's that
Reformed Theological Seminary.
Gang, get me off this podcast, bro. You just say you don't know the difference between.
No, it's not that I didn't know. It's that I forgot.
We have many contacts in RBC, bro. For real.
Who's RVC, bro?
RBC.
What is
Reformation Bible College in Florida.
Nah, bro. We're going RTS.
RTS, Reformed Theological Seminary.
Theological Seminary. That's my boy. Yo, shout out to Lucas Emeriti. If you ever watch this, shameless plug. No, that's my boy right there.
But where is that one, RTS?
I'm not even sure. I know that I think it might be like Michigan or something, but
it's
I
Minnesota or something. No,
yeah,
Minnesota, something like that. Yeah, I was talking to your dad about it.
Because I feel like I've heard it before.
We talked about it.
Man,
Yeah,
I have.
but who
I'm gonna
went
be
to
honest
that
with you.
one?
I have no idea. No idea.
You
I'm
don't
so
know-
bady with seminaries here in the United States.
You don't know who teaches there?
No, they
Anything?
just have like 7,000 seminaries here in the United
They have
States.
so many, and they have all around. Like they have different
Bro,
seminaries for
there's
different
no way.
topics, bro.
They have so many seminaries here in
It's
the United
insane.
States.
Like there's like multiple
real?
covenants.
Yeah.
Like there's like a covenant in like
I'm gonna
Orlando.
search it up really quick. Go keep talking.
It's cool.
bro.
Oh, he Junior's already searching it up. But yeah, we're looking at those 3. But of course, I'm not gonna have to do more research as time goes on, right? Because it's slowly getting closer.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's
approaching slowly but surely. And I mean I could have done the like write an essay on like this like theological book, but then I look back at it and I'm like, I'm not fit to be a youth leader right now, like a youth pastor. like right out of high school, go straight to seminary. Like I don't think that that's like where I need to be, and I don't think that's good for my mental sanity.
I got it pulled up.
Okay,
Who teaches
Junior
it?
pulled it up.
It's a multi-campus institute.
Multi-campus institution, guys.
So,
Or TS?
yeah.
Okay.
It started in Jackson, Mississippi, but there's also in
Mississippi,
Florida, Charlotte,
Florida, Charlotte, Atlanta, Washington,
NYC,
New York,
and 2 in Texas.
2 in Texas.
Dallas and Houston.
Yeah, couldn't find who.
It's a lot of those.
Where did Aaron Nunn just do his stuff here?
I have no idea.
He did it in Jackson, Mississippi.
Probably
In
at
Jackson,
RTS
Mississippi.
then.
I don't know if it was
I
RTS.
don't know.
It might be something
There's
else.
way too many seminaries here.
Ain't
I
there,
don't know.
like around that area, there's also like RC Spruce stuff and Joe Beek stuff, I think.
RC
down in the
Sproul, what a
south.
goat, bro. I love
Yeah.
that man.
You were actually talking about him before.
RC, yeah. He's a really good theologian. I
Yeah.
got into some of his stuff, and it's like,
Shame he was hit by a bazooka, bro. It's crazy.
Huh? Hit by a bazooka, bro?
What'd you say?
Where does that come from,
Yo,
bro?
the,
You might be
the lack
tweaking
of
out.
sleep is getting to him, bro.
Hit by a bazooka? Oh my
He got
gosh,
it.
bro.
He got it. Rest in peace, my grandpa. He got hit by a bazooka.
Bro.
Yeah, but he's my grandpa. That's RC Sproul, bro. That's my the father of my father, bro. He's my predecessor. He's the goat.
Yo, let's
He's
get
with
into
God now.
let's get into systematics really quick.
Okay.
I
gosh.
was. I'm back to reading. The
I have no
Institutes.
preparation for. Well, I have some preparation for this.
This is
but
fully off the
I'm
dome,
not-
guys.
4
This
hours.
is off the dome, guys.
You have 4 years of study, bro. You can answer this question.
All right, let's see.
I was back on reading the Institutes,
Okay.
and I was reading on chapter 5, section 3 or 4, in which it's a pretty cool claim.
Okay.
So John Calvin, he develops the idea that the more gifts we have, the more we tend to turn to our own pride and decline God. In the idea of we know enough to know there's not a God, and we just refuse the idea that something gave us these gifts, right? And we
Yeah.
turn to our pride. And then my question is, and then we go to the parable. Is it parable? Yeah. Of in which Jesus talks about how God gives gifts to every single one of his people differently, so they can go out and act according and multiply, right?
Mhm.
And fruit and multiply. So it's about how's it called, the coins, like the 10 coins and
The talents, yeah.
the talents. Yeah, so he gives 10 talents to one, he gives, I think it's like 5 talents to the other one, and they all multiply it, and the one that has only 1 talent, he buries it, right? And we see how the one that buries it is wrong, because he should have multiplied what he had according to the amount that he had. So God asks from us different things, right? According to the gifts that we have. So why would he give gifts, many gifts to people, knowing that they're not going to multiply it? Knowing that they tend to turn to their own pride and to their own nature, and to deny God by thinking they have enough by their own gifts. They're their own gifts.
So there's this beautiful thing that's really at play here in theology. And if we were to look at John Calvin's statements versus the Bible and the text of the talents, they're dealing with different information. Specifically, in general, it's kind of related, but I would say that the emphasis for both of them is different. I think that John Calvin's statement, John Calvin's famous quote is that the heart is a factory of idols. So it's a place where you produce idols. And once you begin to allow that thought that you are self-sufficient, that you know, and pride begins to swell up, you start to create idols for yourself. And that's where it begins to be a problem. Now, this is obviously for the Christian. For the non-Christian who has a lot of talents, that's even an even different topic. But just for the talents text, in that text, Jesus is speaking on human responsibility in relation to the divine calling, to the divine equipping, to the divine empowering that we have been given through these talents, and our responsibility to steward these gifts well, right? So the emphasis for the talents text is the stewardship. The emphasis for John Calvin is the inclination of man towards idolatry. And then I'd say that even more so when we look at the idea of beauty in any sort of sense, it's not that God has only given it to people because what would the beauty be in that, right? What would the sense be of that? We call it prevenient grace. When the world falls and humanity is deprived of its goodness, its neutral morality in a sense, its ability to obey and listen, and its own free will to follow God, in the garden, Genesis chapter 3, when evil and sin and death creep into the world and ruin, deprave all human faculties of the goodness of God, God did not allow us as a human race to fall so deep into sin that there would be no goodness. His grace is still very present, and it permeates throughout different areas of our life, be us Christian or not. This is why, for example, it tells us in the Bible that the sun, it rises over the house of the just and the unjust. It's why rain falls in the garden of the one who believes and who doesn't. God, in his mercy, in his compassion, he has allowed these people to not fall so far as to be incompetent before him. He still gives them talents. So there is beauty in the world. And then we look at the interesting thing about God. It's like, wow. All of this just to show that he is still good. He allows artists that will never recognize him to have talents because he's good, because he's merciful and compassionate. He allows people who will never accept him, who will never come to him, to have these outstanding abilities because it's who he is as a God, to not allow us to fall so deep into sin that we're legitimately, worse than Hitler. Like that's how good God is, that he would uphold us. No português, a palavra refrear, to put on hold, to break, to withstand the full, entire damning effects of sin in this life, right? So that would be my kind of approach to it, is to look at it from different perspectives. Talent, it's a lesson principle on stewardship.
What would stewardship be?
Stewardship is your ability to manage responsibly what God has given you.
Okay.
So that could be anything. A lot of times we talk about it in church in regards to money, but it's more than that. It's talents, it's time, it's effort, it's finances, it's everything that involves our entire life, our job, our work ethic. Everything needs to be stewarded well. And so that would be stewardship. Then the second lesson with John Calvin would be the idolatry. And then here in this case, it's grace. So that's the simplest answer I could give you. Why does God give these people gifts knowing that they would never come to him? Because he's a good God. He's a gracious God. He hasn't allowed us to fall so deep into our sin that the entire world would be completely, utterly ruined. He still puts his hand over us,
Any comments?
Oh, not really.
All right.
I mean, I don't really want to comment on anything because I don't want to say anything wrong. I'm just gonna.
Bro,
No,
He's
not
gonna
even like
correct
that.
you anyways.
I'll correct you, buddy. No, I'm just kidding. You got this. You got
You hear this? You hear this, buddy? It's called I get buddy every day, guys.
I want to comment, dude. I mean, don't you want to be a pastor? You gotta learn how to talk about stuff. And you're lucky that I let Paulo say it first, bro.
Bro, if you threw me in there, I would have been like, nope. Yeah, I'm quiet. I'm trying to learn.
Contribute. Let's see.
Damn, I'm on the spot.
No pressure. This
This
will just determine whether or not you'll teach in the next year. No, I'm just kidding, guys. This is a joke. We're looking at all three cameras. The third one's not.
There's no third one. Where's the third?
Where's the third camera, gang?
I don't know.
Ran out of battery. I mean, I know that, like, God being a gracious God, he's not going to pick favorites, right? He's not going to be like, oh, yeah, since I predestined you, you're going to have 10 talents. And then the person who blah, blah, blah doesn't believe in me, I'm going to give no talents because, like, I don't know. You don't believe in me. He's a gracious God. But he's also just. We know that he's just. And he's fair. And I think that that's the beauty of it. Because it's like, God isn't picking favorites, just like we just shouldn't pick favorites. Pick favorites and, like,
okay.
Continue.
About the fair stuff. So, fair is related to our view, right? Of the concept of fairness is something that, according to a human being, according to one's perspective, seems just. But just as morality is according to the law. So I don't think that the best way to tell it would be fair would be just. Because God is the law. So he's just at all moments. There's no way God would step out of the law and would still be fair. You know what I mean? Because God wouldn't do something against the law because of ethics or because he is it. You know what I mean? So that's the only thing I would point out is just that, I mean,
just
for us, some stuff that God does might seem unfair.
Unfair, yeah.
Because we don't have the perception that he does. We have a human perspective, and that would make us think that's unfair, but it's just. It's 100%. Still just. That's the only thing. That's correct, right?
I would say so. I kind of zoned out because I was eating this cookie.
He really likes the cookies.
Man, these cookies are so good, bro.
If he zoned out, it's because I didn't say any heresy. So we're
God. I would say that God is just, and I would say that the idea of fairness, when we look at it, it has to be equated. Obviously, in human perception, you're correct. Like me say, this isn't fair. That's because that's the way I see it. But everything is fair and just when it comes to God. I would agree with you. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Yes,
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
Not questions, no.
Bro, you said you had a whole list of questions.
Yeah,
man.
When did I say
we're
that?
working on some questions.
I said I was going to, but then I was looking over. I was like, bro, these are so forward. So I didn't even write them down. Now I forgot all of them.
Wow.
But
See, that wasn't good stewardship.
Ooh. No. Okay, wait. So
Bro, clip him.
All right. Ready? Oh, I'm in charge of the clips.
Clip him.
I'm in charge of the clips, bro. Anyway, so would you say that? So, okay, background. In English, we're reading the Scarlet Letter. Have you read the Scarlet Letter? And y'all read the Scarlet Letter?
Buddy, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. No, listen. It's gonna equate to a question. And there's this one minister.
Wait, what is the book about? Just give us a rundown of like the general.
If I'm being honest, I just wrote a 9-page paper on it, and I don't know what's going on. Basically, it's about this woman. There was no AI actually. I low-key just zoned out and I was yapping about
It's incredible how
hiding shit.
Jitter's behind the cameras. And
Why is he
still making
speaking, bro?
comments.
Yo, stick to behind the cameras, bro.
Bro, he wants to get a chair so bad, bro.
He wants to be in the podcast.
Put him in the next episode. I double dog dare you.
Me too.
Wait, why is this coming to me? Okay, anyway, it's about this woman who was an adulteress and she was like going through stuff, and then she got a scarlet letter embroidered on her, whatever. I don't know. It was like her chest or something. And there's just one minister, and he hides his sin, right? He's hiding his sin. And we know that hiding our sin is dangerous, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm writing on the importance of actually acknowledging your sin and acknowledging how you're imperfect and not trying to make yourself seem perfect for the crowd. Is that correct as well?
Yes.
Okay. In the area of hiding your sin, if you commit something that we know that all sin is the same in the eyes of God, but in our earthly and in our human perspective, let's say that you're a minister, aka what I'm inferring is happening, guys. I haven't actually read the farther part yet, but let's say that the minister was the one that had the child with the woman, and he hid that fact. And then he's starting to suffer like physical like problems with it, like he's becoming frail, and he's like 20 something or something like that. He's becoming frail. He's having his own problems. He's like slowly dying. Would you say that even though hiding your sin might benefit, let's say, you and the people around you, would it be better if you acknowledged it and you let the people know? Or would it be better to hide it in private and then speak to, like, let's say, like, one person, try to, like, just leave that to the side?
So, I'm kind of lost right now. What sin are we talking about?
Sin in general, like hidden, like hiding your
hiding
own
a sin.
sin. He's hiding his sin. So I'm inferring adultery, right? Adultery. So he probably infringes.
The woman knows, of course.
The woman knows, yes.
Yeah, okay. And he is a priest?
He's a minister. He's
In the church.
Reverend Dimsdale. Like, that's the name, Reverend
Okay.
Dimsdale. So
Ooh.
yeah, so it's kind of like, that's why I'm confused.
I'd say he has to.
He has to
announce
acknowledge it and announce it.
Yeah, because when we're talking about a minister, and we see that the way in which in the Bible we see that the way that pastors are held accountable they're held accountable to the church, right?
Yeah.
So, because they're the ones guiding those, first of all, they shouldn't even be in that sin, of course.
Of course,
That's
100%.
common knowledge. But if they are, they have
To be transparent, right?
yeah. And if they truly repented and they truly followed the scriptures, they would know that they have to tell the church that. And they would, I mean, in my opinion, they would have to back away from their from their position, because it's something that it's unacceptable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different level of sin. I mean, we know that all sin is sin, but like that's one
Example,
adultery
right?
is,
Like, it's a bad, like,
it's
example.
literally the worst portrait you can have of a pastor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
And
also,
unless
do you
it's a
wanna go?
killer. It's
I
a
was
murder.
gonna talk about like the story of like David and how he like David, Bathsheba, he acknowledged he acknowledged his sin. He acknowledged that he did wrong, and then he went to God, and he actually repented, and he asked that God take away everything from me, but don't take away you or your presence. Correct?
Yeah.
I would say so. There's a difference, obviously.
Yeah, 100%.
First of all, like, I just wanted to touch upon a couple of topics, because for me it never made sense, right? This idea that all sin is equal before God, if all sin is clearly not equal before men. Like, if I tell a white lie, is that categorically worse
Than murder.
than murdering someone in cold blood? I would
straight.
contend and say that it is objectively worse to murder someone.
Well,
Yes.
yeah.
Now-
100%. No, 100%.
We
So
have-
I've talked to a couple of professors of mine, and I've raised this question maybe in like 2021, 2020. back in the day, the old days. Oh, it's been a while. And I was sat at
He was just turning
McDonald's with
20.
my professor, and I was like, listen, some people say that all sin is equal before God, but then I look in the Bible and it says that on the last day will be judged for each one according to what they did do and what they did not do. And then ultimately the conclusion that I was able to draw up is the following. First of all, there's a difference in periods. So in this life right now, the weight of all sins in terms of forgiveness is the same. Jesus Christ does forgive the rapist, the murderer, the liar, the thief through his blood and through the power of his blood. There is no difference in Jesus' ability to save. Now, there is obviously different developments and consequences of sin. If I tell a white lie, the consequence might not be as great in my life as, for example, murdering someone. The consequence would probably be a lot more severe. And we have to deal with these consequences because we sin. But then there's also the term eschatological, in eschatological terms, what is the weight of sin? And that's where it begins to differ. So I'd say that for this moment of life, all sin is equal before God. But on Judgment Day, when Christ comes back and we're face to face with him, then all sins will not necessarily be equal in value, but they'll be judged in accordance to what exactly they are. And I don't know if that makes complete and total sense, but it does acknowledge in the first moment that all sin is equal now. And it also realizes that, yes, God on Judgment Day will have a value system to how he interprets what we did and what we did not do. And so like the whole pastoral question, is it all right for a pastor to maintain a secret like that hidden? Well, there's so many different factors, so many different realities to that. And we can't really tailor a singular response to this, but in general, if we were to generalize it and think, yes, he should tell the session. He should be correctly punished or disciplined by the church. He should be removed from the place where he is at, but he shouldn't be cast completely aside. I think that if God wants to administer grace through his sin, he can still do that. For church members, it's a little bit different because, like Rafael said, leaders are held to a different degree of accountability. But for any church member and any church leader and any pastor, you need to have a circle of people that you are accountable to. The most dangerous pastors, the most dangerous leaders, the most dangerous church members are people who do not report to anyone. People who are not discipled, people who are not corrected, people who are not advised, people who are not guided towards the correct goal. And so the question that I would have for you, are you struggling with sin? And if you answer yes, specific recurring sin, tell somebody. Find a don't, like, obviously I'm not advocating for you going out.
Yeah.
Like, they open up a circle for like prayer in the middle of Tuesday worship service. The whole youth is there. And it's like, guys, do you have any prayer requests? And the person just rips open their heart and they're like, yo, this is like my deepest, darkest secret. Like, everyone just take it. Because that's not wise stewardship.
Well, if they feel comfortable.
But that's the thing. Is
That's
it
like-
wise to do that?
Yeah,
I don't
like
think
if
it's
you're not gonna go
wise.
to anyone and just be like,
Yeah,
I
you're
don't
not going
think
to
anybody
open
would.
up
Yeah.
and rip open your heart in front of 30 people. No, find a friend who you could genuinely trust to give you good advice and go to him and ask him to pray over you to ask God to forgive you, because the effects that the pastor in the book faces, I haven't read it, but from what you said, it's the conscience of biblical sin. David, when he commits the sin, if you go to read in Psalm chapter 51, he pleads with God to create in him a new heart, something that only God could do. And then he describes what God is doing. And he says, like, take these bones that you have broken. Like, he's saying that God is, he's chastising him. He's disciplining him. He's allowing him to feel it in his inner workings, in his body, in his flesh. He's allowing him to feel that. So what? So he could be put on the right path, so he could repent and turn and come back. And that's the whole idea, I'd say, that I would have with church members. Are you struggling with sin? If yes, then there's a second question. Is it a cyclical behavior in your life? Or, like, what do I mean by this? Is it a sin that you occasionally fall into, or is it a behavior that you constantly fall into? If the answer is the first one, then it's something that needs to be stopped, and you can, because Christ has given you the freedom from sin to do that. But if it's the second option, it's cyclical, it keeps coming back, then I think that there are other things that need to be changed before that behavior can break. So maybe a worldview, or maybe belief systems, or maybe convictions, sensibility, something. It needs to change. And then once you enter into that, then you begin to change, because you've already set the right environment for it. And after that, you end up receiving this grace. Ultimately, this grace, which is the grace to follow Jesus through these toxic behaviors. And there's so much to learn once you repent finally from cyclical sins in your life, recurring sins in your life, because it's like you could finally breathe again. You could finally see again.
Yeah.
You can finally live again. It's not the rush of finding the next moment to sin in that manner, but it's like you're finally dialed in, you're locked, you're like, man, look at what happened to me, and I allowed it to happen, but Christ, he's so good. He's so gracious. He's so compassionate. He has reached into the depths of my sin, and he's pulled me out. He's given me freedom. He's broken every chain, and that has been shown in my life through a cyclical sin, a recurring behavior that I have adopted for myself, that was broken by the power of the cross and blood of Christ and his resurrection. That's kind of what I would say. If it's a pastor, obviously, different like path. It's a different path. The pastor should have this. For pastors, you need to have a support group. From at least from the studies that I've read, right? Because you're so susceptible to falling into sin when you're in a place that's so exposed. And for church members also, have a place where you can go and be open about your standing with God. And then, just final thing, be courageous. We have a lot of cowards in the church. And what I mean by this is not people who won't go out and preach. Those people are very courageous. Or people who go out and preach, they're very courageous. But what I mean with this courage, we have people who are not willing to face reality as it is. They think that everything is, better than it is. They live in some kind of delusion that everything is just going to, someday you're going to wake up and it's going to be all okay. And that's not it. Christianity calls us not to live another reality. It calls us to live the real reality. To look out into life and see exactly what it is that's happening. And go to God for his providence and grace. And go to God for his mercy. And go to God for his compassion. And go to God for his love. and go to God for his power to restore, and go to God for his sovereign shepherding over our life. Go to God, right? That would be the ultimate thing that I would say. It's the courage to face life as it really is. Otherwise, there would be no reason to be a Christian now in this life, because we could just honestly wait for the next one,
Yeah.
But that's not it. We gotta face life. We gotta be courageous.
And I feel like when you were talking about like having people that you can reach out to, that's when I see that community is one of the most important things in a Christian walk, in a Christian life. Some people say that I'm the church, like I don't need to go to church. I can worship God on my own and that's enough and all that. But at the end of the day, Jesus also calls us to be together with one another. We see that a lot in Paul. In all the letters that Paul writes is addressing to a church. Every church is going to have their own problems
And struggles.
their struggles, exactly. But because we're all people that once failed to God, and that are in a sinful nature every single day, and the common goal of the church is to actually, through that community, work on each other's lives in a positive way, of course, and together to worship the one and only Creator. And I feel like having a community of your age group is something so important.
Super important.
So
It's
important,
insanely important.
because when you're in church and you're a teenager, when you're in church and you are a kid and you go to school, and you're by yourself at church, you don't have anybody, and you go to school, you have your friends at school, but they're not in the same environment as you. They don't know how it is, how your mind functions, how you were raised sometimes. We tend to hide that
Exactly.
that background, to hide that view that we have. And I feel like when I was mostly impacted by God, and I was mostly worked on by God, was when I had a community around. Not because they were doing everything, but because I felt like I was safe, like I could talk
like you could
about
speak
God
to them when you needed to.
like I had a community. I saw, there's people like me, people that
Like a
were
support group.
raised in faith, people that believe in the same God, that worship. There's people my age that help in church, that serve, and I always served. And I was like, I didn't really know anybody that, especially when I got here, I didn't know anybody that way. So I was in a very bad environment. Thank God I was never badly influenced. I was always a person that influenced the environment. So people would stop doing what they were doing when they were around me, or stuff like that. But many people are so easily influenced, and because they don't have that community around them, they become what they are around, the circle that they're around, and they become something that they were not raised to be. They were raised to be Christian kids. They were raised to serve in church, and they were raised for God, to worship God. And unfortunately, because they don't feel like they belong anywhere, they turn away.
They turn away and they go into different habits, different groups, to try to feel like understood.
Yeah. And I feel like community is so important because of that.
Insanely, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that I agree. I would also say that I partially am very careful with the way that I say this. Whenever I think of, for example, the importance of the church, it is so important. That is God's hands, it's God's feet, it's God's mouth, it's God's heart here in the world. That is the church. It is the physical representation of God. It's how people encounter Christ. But if I say that just being around church people all the time is the most essential. I would be very careful, at least in my view, because I see so many people who go to church and they're around each other all the time, and instead of getting better, they get worse.
Well, there's those cases too.
Yeah, and so like,
But what I'm
well, I get what you're saying in the terms of like in the perfect ideal scenario where everyone's following God
Yeah.
and so forth. That is really good, but then I'd also be careful, because then I'd ask you the question, well, what kind of responsibility in that scenario do we bear towards the calling that we've been given? Because then a lot of times, for example, I would say this. What is the most common thing for us to see? It's somebody who goes into church and they're in there for a while, and then something happens with the leadership, something happens with some kind of person, and it doesn't work out, and they leave the church. And now their spiritual life is on a decline, and they look and they say, "You know what? It was that church who did this to me. It was that church it was the pastor who didn't take care of me. It was the leadership that never called. It was, the person who never visited me when I was sick. It was the person who did this. This is why they are the reason as to why I am spiritually in the place that I am in right now." I think the church contributes a lot to our personal walk with God, and God saves us towards a community. He doesn't save the individual to be by himself. That is biblically accurate in the way that I see it. But I would also say this, that we need to create a conscience in our life that we need the church, yes, but the church is not the foundation of our present, I guess, relationship with God. We are responsible for actively seeking out. We are responsible for actively being in the present. We are responsible for doing a devotional. I can blame a lot of people if that's the case, if I wanted to. But is God going to bring them with me when he questions me? Or is he going to say, "Why didn't you do this? Why weren't you faithfully seeking me? Everybody else was turned against me. Why weren't you with me?" The question that God asks, I think it's precisely this one. Where are you in your spiritual walk, and why are you there? If we have the courage to blame anyone else, we failed, because we haven't understood that there is a real day-to-day walk with God. Now, here's the interesting part. Where does the whole church thing come into? And this is what I find so cool. The church, in biblical terms, New Testament at least, it's the word ecclesia in Greek. And I hate citing Greek. I hate, talking terminology. I already told you guys this. But it's such a cool word. It's the ones who were called out of. The called out ones. We were called out into the world by God to be a separate, holy, living people. Now, the debate stems, like you said, some people say we are the church. And then other people say, the church is the historic institution that was passed down years and generations. And what is the church? It's a junction of both of them. It is the institution, yes, but it is also the organism. It's the people within the church. No singular person is the church. A singular person is the temple for the Spirit of God. It is a singular person can be the dwelling place of God through the Holy Spirit. That's what Jesus says. We went over this last week, that if they obey his commandments, then the Son and the Father will make a home within the person's heart, right? Each individual person in relation to the church is like a brick, right? That's what Peter talks about in his letter. We're being built up brick by brick. I would contend that would be the most accurate depiction of it, right?
Yeah.
We're not entirely the church in it of ourselves, but together we form the church, and together we become significant, and together we live out the calling of God to be set apart, to be intentional in society with everything that we do, good stewards, good servants, good people for the sake of the glory of God. That's kind of what I would get at, you know?
I agree, and that's something that me and João were talking about in the first in his first episode. We did touch on that. We talked about how important it is to have your own relationship with God, but how it's also important for you to be present at the church because you are, as you said, a brick.
Yeah, you're like a fundamental piece.
Yeah, for the construction of the church, which is the people of God.
Yeah.
The gathering of the people of God, along with the institutional stuff. 100%. But if we had to choose one, which we don't have to, we would say that the church is the people of God.
Yeah, I would even say that there's this preciousness to how the Bible explains it. It would be the reality that God's presence interacts differently between a group setting and an individual setting. God's presence is experienced differently when you're in a church service than when you're at a devotional moment in, your room or your house or wherever it is that you have your devotional moments. And that's so cool to think that you can see different aspects of the very real presence of God.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to experience it through different situations. Like, that's so awesome.
It's crazy.
Like, I could go home and I could get one view of who God is, and he is awesome and mighty and powerful in the same manner that he would be at a church service regular, but he would show it to me in different ways. I would, go to prayer and I never cry, but all of a sudden I'm bawling my eyes out because the Bible is telling me that one man changed my entire life. The God man changed my life 2026 years ago,
Yeah.
Like, something that seems so minuscule in terms of person and place, like somebody dying in ancient, Israel 2026 years ago, to a carpenter, a builder, a constructor, and for a few short hours on the cross, just, subjected to, yes, public shaming and all of that, but just for a few hours he dies, and now everything is somehow different.
Yeah.
And now I'm crying because I'm like, who am I to even be included in all of this? And now you see in the church these people who are not only there to watch and participate, but who are actively transformed by the gospel, who are actively redeemed, and who experience not exactly the same, but somewhat of the same understanding that Jesus Christ has saved them. Like, that is, for me, at least, something that's wonderful. I mean, there are some songs that would make you bawl your eyes out, when you're in a congregation, as opposed to if you were by yourself. There are different moments, there are different scenes, there are different moments of intimacy and connection with the Lord. But ultimately, it's a grace of God that we get to experience his presence in different ways, in different places, in different moments of our life. Mm-hmm. And he is, in all of them, altogether worthy, altogether lovely. He is the greatest in all of these moments. So that's what I would kind of say.
Bars.
Nope. So the team is already on me. They apparently apparently they want to go home. We're running out of storage. Sorry,
so we're running out of storage.
Yeah. I think it's
they knew it was a three-way and it was gonna take longer. It's not a one-on-one conversation.
I'm joking with you
We're
all.
trolling
Bro.
with you guys. Don't
Bro,
worry.
you got tilted, bro.
He was tilted, bro. Let's go home and play Valorant.
Yo,
Bro wants to go home. Yeah, he wants to go
Let's go home and play some
he
Valorant.
Valorant.
wants to
bro.
hop on Valorant on that
Valorant
bronze 3
and get up
lobby,
from bronze
bro.
3.
You de-ranked, shut up, bro.
Bro, y'all both need to hop on your bikes and go to the gym, bro. I'm telling you.
I was.
That is a slap on the face.
Today is actually a gym day.
Today is
Saturday.
probably legs.
I had
Oh,
like
you
this.
have a leg day today?
I'm probably gonna end up doing full body. I've been on an upper lower split.
Bro, I just hopped on upper lower push pull legs, bro. It's looking goated.
That's what my brother was doing. That's what
It's fine.
Okay,
Bro,
we said-
okay, this was a good
That goes to the behind the scenes. We're talking about their workouts. It can go to the
Yeah,
behind.
no,
the scenes.
it's fire.
All right.
You guys should definitely go to the
Hey
gym.
Joe,
too.
you're holding the mic the wrong way, buddy. All right,
They can still hear me. Can they
So-
still hear me? Oh.
guys, I'm gonna close it out here. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Paulo and João, for coming, for showing up, even though
course.
it was an hour late. It was still great. It was
There
the
was a lot of
longest
traffic. All right.
The longest-
Guys,
totally.
there was a lot of traffic.
on a Saturday morning. Yeah.
Bro, I live far. I live like 8 minutes away, bro.
Check the behind the scenes.
There was a
and
lot of
the-
traffic, all right?
Check
It
the
took me
behind the
an hour to
scenes
get
and
here,
know the
bro.
actual reason onto why he was late.
Huh?
Thank you guys so much for watching again. I'll see you on the next episode, Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern time, and in Brazil 2 p.m. I'm running out of
Brain
4 hours of
storage.
sleep. Yeah.
Nice. All right.
Peace out.
Goodbye.
Bye guys.